This is not gonna be your run-of-the-mill stereotypical storytelling video, but I guarantee you by the end of this video, you will have your audience watching longer than they ever have, and I'm gonna show you the sequence for storytelling that works on any channel on YouTube. Let's get into it. Our storytelling process comes in 5 steps. The first step that you need to take is to record your starting state. Basically, during this step of the phase, you are setting expectations for the viewer. Imagine like someone on a weight loss journey, right? They always take that first picture when they're at their heaviest or when they're skinny and they don't have any muscles yet. That's what you're doing in this step or this phase. You're setting that expectation, you're recording mentally and physically for the viewer what things look like for you before the video even really starts, before you even set any additional expectations. Basically, it's a here's how I am, here's who I am, here's how I feel about what I'm doing. This works in a lot of different video types, even video types where you are just learning something like educational. You can record your starting state. Imagine I was gonna learn how to do portrait sketching, and I could say, at the beginning of my video, I could sketch out some stick figure and say, this is my art level now. By the end of this video, I'm gonna learn how to be an artist like the best of those out there. And so you're just recording this beginning state so that people can see the progress. You're starting the story here. Really quick, before I move on, we are running a challenge all about intros and hooks and how to make the best intros and hooks possible to keep people watching even longer. That ties directly into storytelling. So if this is something you want to improve right now, this challenge is running all throughout June. Guys, we are dropping new challenges every single month. You need to sign up now and get participating in these challenges so you can level up your YouTube game. Doing it yourself can work, but man, you'll save so much time and effort if you just get signed up and be a part of these challenges and participate with all the other creators that are in there and help each other grow. We'll be in there. Hope to see you inside. Back to the video. The second step in this process is to add variables. This is the intentional planning portion of your video where you're going to add interest elements throughout. Now, you're probably already doing this to some extent in your outlining and planning of your videos, but what you need to do is plan to embellish these points even more. You want to make the highs a little higher and the lows a little lower. And by adding these variables into our video, we're establishing a baseline of interest. But there's a lot more to it than that we're going to get to here in just a minute. An example of this that I recently watched that I was so impressed by was the Ludwig and Michael Reeves Japan trip video. They did a series on the Ludwig YouTube channel where basically they started at the bottom of Japan and they rode motorcycles all the way to the top tip of Japan. They had no cell phones, they had no maps, they barely spoke any Japanese. And all of that was planned specifically to make the video more interesting. They very well could have had a cell phone to have maps to navigate. They also weren't allowed to use highways. They could only use back roads. So they planned these variables, no phone, no map, only back roads, because they knew that that would make their experience so much more interesting to watch from the viewer perspective. If they had just been traveling with a map, they could travel on highways, they would have zipped up through Japan probably in a day or two. I really don't know how big Japan is. I could be totally wrong there. But by adding these challenge points, they ensured the video would be interesting. Now, this is something that's a little bit counterintuitive when it comes to storytelling because I know that as a creator myself, I'm oftentimes scared to add these variables into my video because it makes it feel like an uncontrolled scenario. By taking the cell phone away from the Japan trip, how would they know where to go? They'd have to ask people for directions, but they don't speak Japanese, right? So you put yourself into this scary situation. So I know a lot of times for myself, I'll even avoid adding these variables into my videos so that I can feel like the video is controlled. I always want to present myself the way that makes me look the best, but the reality is that just makes for a less interesting, worse story and more boring video. We really need to switch our thinking around and let people take the journey with us as we're doing whatever we're doing. Whether you are gaming and you're doing a playthrough and you're trying to do a speed run, or whether you're doing ASMR and you happen to do a little bit of a mess up and it makes a sound you didn't expect it to make, rather than cutting that out, you could leave it in. There are so many variables that we can and should add into our videos, but as creators, we need to stop thinking this way that I just explained. We need to flip our thinking so we add variables on purpose, putting ourselves in situations that maybe are a little bit uncomfortable, where we don't know the outcome, because the story will improve leaps and bounds. The next part of this is to just let things happen. Going back to that feeling of discomfort, letting things happen. We need to allow these variables to happen, and hopefully it goes wrong. Hopefully it doesn't happen exactly how you planned it, because the reality is when people see this unfiltered style of content, when they see things happening that it's clear you didn't expect, and when they get to see the challenges and the changes and how you handle those different obstacles, that is what keeps people engaged. It will feel so much more natural than planning every little twist and turn in and then feeling like you have to kind of play it up for the camera. In reality, if you just add a couple variables early on, and then let things happen and just go with the flow, you're going to have recorded some of the best content you ever have. Even in a talking head video like this, sometimes I'll do a total mistake, a total mess up, but there's something valuable in there that when I pass this on to Cody for editing, he will take some of those mess ups or mistakes that I probably would have wanted to cut out, and he'll turn them into something that's interesting or funny or something that will cause more engagement. It works every time. And remember, even if you are concerned about feeling uncomfortable and how it might make you look bad or like you don't know what you're doing, it really doesn't matter. There are so many examples of this on YouTube where a creator did something and it didn't go exactly how they wanted it to go, but they rolled with it and it ended up making the story even better. A great example of this is one of the Mr. Beast videos where he did Squid Games. There was one contestant during the red light, green light game who did something that was completely unexpected. So of course the contestants could only run forward and progress when he said green light, but they had to stop when he said red light. And if they didn't stop, they would be out. Well, Mr. Beast was doing red light, green light, and he was playing the game with them, but then he turned around to talk to the camera and he said the word green light to the camera. The contestant heard it and he took that as a chance to run as far as he could, and he made it to the finish line. Now, he technically broke the rule because Mr. Beast wasn't actually saying green light to them as the contestants, but Mr. Beast was like, well, technically I did see green light, and so he used that in the final cut of the video, but it was totally unplanned, totally unexpected. So little things like that can make all the difference, and the audience will love it. Now, this next step may be one of the most important that you do in this entire process to enhance the storytelling in your videos, and that's the review process. Once you've shot all of your footage, whether it's a talking head or gaming or ASMR or outdoors or DIY, it doesn't matter. At some point, you're gonna need to review every piece of footage that you shot and figure out what you have, because everything that you shot will not and should not, it cannot end up in the final cut. A great example of this are the Mark Rober videos where he does the squirrel challenges. Basically what he says is he shoots hundreds of hours of footage and then he takes that footage and he just reviews it. And he reviews it and he reviews it and he builds out interesting storylines from just teeny tiny pieces of the footage. And the final cut of the video may only end up being 20 or 30 minutes, but he cut it down from hundreds of hours of footage. You don't have to be near that extreme, but you may end up cutting half of the footage that you have just because you want to highlight the most interesting things that happen, maybe some of the high points, some of the low points of the video, some of the things that went wrong. You get to choose and build out the story. Now here's the thing. Your audience doesn't need every detail. This is so key, and this is something that so many creators miss out on. Your audience shouldn't get every detail, because although that is the story that happened, by providing them every detail, you would be giving them a one-for-one of exactly what happened to you. That's not what they're here for. People want to be engaged, they want to be entertained. And so you need to pick out the most interesting, the best footage that's going to craft the best story possible. And that may be leaving out some key details if you just don't need them. Sometimes you'll have so much high happen in a row that you may need to cut one or two of those high elements so that you can contrast it later on in the video with a lower element. So it's really important to realize that so much of your footage will probably go unused, and that is okay. That's actually fantastic, because that means that you have a compelling story that just doesn't need all the details. And by holding back some of the details, you create curiosity, you create engagement. And again, that is going to skyrocket your retention. And the last part of this process is to build out your story. This is finding areas once you've established the storyline that you want for your video, you need to find the areas of most interest and you need to embellish them. You need to make the ways to find them more interesting, whether that's visually or from voiceover or from doing things like screen recordings or screen grabs. There's so many ways to increase engagement on your videos and embellish the parts of your videos that will keep your audience watching. Maybe you do need to remove a small section of a piece of your video so that you can create curiosity in the beginning, but then help fill that curiosity gap just a few seconds later. All of those little pieces of retention are gonna get people staying, and it's gonna help people love your video through the entire thing rather than just staying around for 30 seconds or less. We need to get people watching more of our videos, and it's not just about tricking them to stay. It's about choosing the interesting parts. It's about figuring out how to visually storytell that to them so that they want to stay longer. And then it's about fulfilling their curiosity and keeping them interested throughout the whole video. B-roll and voiceover are your best friend. If you look at the best YouTubers in your niche, if you look at the best YouTubers on the platform, you will see that they're using lots of B-roll to show what's happening, to tell a story. Sometimes they won't even be talking about in their voiceover exactly what's showing on screen, but by listening, the viewer is able to learn something about the video and be progressed through the story, but then also visually, they're being progressed through maybe even a slightly different part of the story, but it all ties together and keeps them super, super engaged. Going back to that Ludwig and Michael Reeves Japan trip video, something that they said is that over the 2 weeks they were doing this trip, they shot footage basically all day, every day. And each day, their videos were edited down into 20 or 30-minute videos. Now, you gotta think how much footage was cut out every single day of their trip. They picked the best parts, they embellished them, and it was interesting because they did a live stream after the fact where they watched the videos for the first time. They had editors editing them separately, and it was amazing to hear them talk through everything that happened on their trip that never made it into the videos. Some of the most interesting and engaging parts that they thought should be in the videos didn't end up making it in, but they knew that the storyline, the ways that their editors crafted the story, it wouldn't have made sense. And so you always remember that. If you don't remember anything else, identify what should be in the story and lean into those things. Cut out the pieces and parts that your audience just doesn't need. Remove extra context and make them curious. You guys, if you do these things, your videos will be better than they ever have. You will get people watching longer than they ever have, and your growth on YouTube will skyrocket. If you need a little bit of extra help doing this, we're actually running a challenge about improving your hooks and intros on YouTube, which ties directly into storytelling. That is our monthly challenge coming up in June, so get signed up for that. We drop a new challenge every single month, and so you will learn how to do YouTube better than you ever have by participating in these challenges like all the other creators who are in there. I would love to see you on the inside. See you, Channel Makers.